Okay, everybody, welcome to another edition of Pop It Like It's Hot. I'm Nick, on a sort of guest host, I guess, today. Joined here by, if you guys want to give a shout out for your names.
Hello.
This is this is Mathonoical.
No, oh, you just threw a picture in. Sorry, I got sidetracked.
I'm GeneralSCUD. I play heroic in mono black.
This is Dave again.
Well, I appreciate you guys coming on, and we got a few things here to talk about. So, I guess the first thing is we got another challenge, so some results from that were interesting. 3 Stompy decks took the top 3 spots, and then of course the ever-present Jeskai taking about half the top 8 and almost half the top, or actually exactly half the top 16. What are you guys' thoughts on all that stuff?
Unhealthy for the meta.
It just kind of looks like the meta is evolving around a few specific cards like Ephemerate, and Stompy's, in my opinion, one of the best decks that fights it right now, since it has a lot of protection, gets down fast, and is able to just beat them on speed.
Yeah, they have some good interaction that's both productive for their game plan and is able to disrupt the sort of Ephemerate action as well.
Yep.
Riverbow seems huge for Stompy. See that going from 2 to a lot of 4-ofs. Elephant Walker, obviously.
Yeah. Well, with everyone running Snow-Covered Island, and it becomes a huge threat.
Hidden Spider, very popular now. Yeah.
I do expect if Stompy keeps going on the rise, that we're going to see the return of Journey to Nowhere, and that's going to start coming back, because that's the best tool to fight them when they start getting their big creatures. You don't want to burn them out.
That's why I stopped playing heroic, because people are playing that card.
I have started seeing more prismatic strands in the last 3 weeks to a month or so. Another card that kind of helps fight off some of these Stompy lists. Any other kind of notable things you guys took from the challenge results?
Well, I think that if you can make a deck, like I'm trying to with mono black, a deck that can beat both of those decks, you're in great shape. But not one of those 2 decks, to be clear.
Yeah, definitely. So beating them without playing them.
I've also been surprised that there hasn't been as much Tron as I've been expecting. I was kind of expecting Tron to kind of adapt to Jeskai's game plan by this point, but I'm assuming just between Jeskai and then Stompy on the other side that Tron's having a hard time adjusting.
Tron must be losing. That's why we're not seeing it.
Yeah. Well, I've been trying to look at the bottom of the challenge results, because I guess P. Proteus on the Discord is still collecting the results. I just haven't seen too much Tron, so I guess people are just kind of already abandoning it for the most part.
I'm also able to beat that with my mono black deck these days, so yeah, I must be having a hard time.
Yeah, we've got a few loyal mono black players at RIW. One of our local guys got 9th here. And Brian seems to love that deck. John's always loved that deck. And 9th place in the challenge is actually a local guy, Michael Armando. Normally I see him play mono red, but he was on mono black control, and he had a record that could have top 8. He just missed it on breakers. So,
well, I threw in more removal, like Guess Verdict and Disfigures and Cry of Contrition, and it fills out the deck nicely against all these the fast decks and breaks up Jeskai Congo combos. So, yeah,
and things are kind of seemingly trending in a certain way for the Jeskai lists as well. A lot of spell stutters running around to try and lock down the mirror. Dispel showed up in a bunch of the lists main deck.
Yeah, exactly.
So certainly we're seeing some of that, I guess, inbred results of decks trying to fight themselves, which is not a great sign.
No, it's not. It's not a healthy meta, at all.
Well,
I've largely abandoned trying to play Jeskai myself. I don't like playing the mirror too much in any format. So as some people know, I've tried to bring back Boros Bully as a way of fighting them with just Rally the Peasants. And that worked for a time, but they've kind of gotten used to it by this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't really found the next thing to attack Jeskai with that I've been enjoying. So somebody will find it at some point.
Well,
So
I guess that kind of leads us into this part of the discussion we were going to get into, which was like brewing in a sort of general sense, but I guess in this context, like how would you attack this if you don't clearly want to play that particular strategy? Then what's your next option?
Well, I arrived at this sort of problem. I was playing exclusively mono white heroic, and it was getting blown out by most of the field, including Jeskai. So I switched back to mono black, jammed in instant speed removal, all the removal I could get to remove break up the combos, kill the spell stutter sprites, all of that, and it seems to work. I'm sure that if this falls in popularity, that Jeskai list, then other decks might come back that attack my deck better, but it seems to work.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
And then from the field, like a few people have been running Stompy with a few adjustments to be able to take down Jeskai, and that's been working relatively well. And there's also a bit of open space for if Jeskai starts putting too many slots to fight other Jeskai, they might start easing up against Boggles or Elves, so some of those can slip in. I know some people have been bringing back Tireless Tribe combo, because that's fast enough and enough counter magic to be able to slip in underneath.
Yeah, you're dead turn 2 if he gets it.
And then, of course, you've got Tron. That I know some people are diehard Tron fans, and I'm kind of surprised there hasn't been more of that. It might be because they're trying to balance between Stonehorn for aggressive decks and counter magic, or just going bigger than Jeskai, which is kind of difficult when Ephemerate Muldrifter is +6 cards.
Well, I will say from my experience playing Tron, the games actually hinge a lot less on whether they have some part of their combo and more on how early I get Tron down. If I can hit it, say turn 4 or maybe even earlier, usually I can get over the top of them. But if they're able to like keep me off Tron deeper into the game, say turn 6 or turn 7, then the advantage that they generate can sort of dig me a deep enough hole that they can win.
Yep.
It's really dependent on hitting Tron very early.
Which I guess I remember Green Tron had a bit of success for a little while there, probably because they're more consistent hitting their Tron. And if you're dropping just threats turn after turn, Jeskai can have a hard time keeping up with that. There was also that mono green kind of like stompy land destruction-y list that came out.
Oh yeah, I saw that. I played against that. I lost.
Like that's a pretty strong deck that is taking advantage of like Jeskai taking a number of turns to set up. So by the time they've set up, they're starting to jam Ulamog's Crushers, and Scred's not big enough by that point to take it out.
Yeah. Yeah, there's even a blue-black land destruction that made top 16 of this recent challenge.
I just played against that today for the first time. Yeah. I beat it, though.
Well, I guess they're kind of taking advantage of the Jeskai decks, slotting in a lot of bounce lands for the mirror so that they can run more spells. So
I was taking... I was looking back at the old Simic land destruction lists I used to play, and I did make a snow version to see if that kind of land destruction would be able to beat up on Jeskai. Of course, when I ran it through a league, I ran against all the aggro decks like Stompy, Boggles, and the like. So I never got to test it against Jeskai, but I think there is some openings for land destruction to get in against them.
Yeah, definitely.
Unfortunately, though, they have pretty polarizing matchups. So if you pick the wrong week to run land destruction, you'll run against a lot of things you don't want to play against. So, of course, there's a lot of risk in there.
When I hit land destruction on the in leagues, it was pretty much easy prey. Like, yeah, he might blow up my lands. I might be crippled for a while, but his big threats, which is just Angler basically, just died on my sacrifice cards like easily.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like where Chainer's Edict is right now as a way to combat, I guess, get card advantage and beat some of the aggro decks like Boggles or Heroic. And what do you guys think of like Snuff Out right now? Is there opportunity there?
Can be good. I've been running one occasionally, but it's good and sometimes not good because sometimes that 4 life does end up being decisive. That's all I'll say.
A lot of aggro decks right now.
Edicts are pretty good against Ephemerate since they can't protect their creature as with like targeted removal. So that is a bit stronger at the moment.
Yeah, but it's unfortunately more dead against a deck like Stompy or Elves, where they can just flood.
Oh yeah, my deck sucks against Elves. I'll be the first to admit it. I lost like twice to it today. No chance. But yeah,
it does feel a little bit like the decks are all trying to claw at the top deck here. It's at Jeskai, which just weakens them up to the stuff that's sort of like just below the tier of Jeskai. So like Stompy or Elves or Boggles.
Well, I have two bad matchups, Burn and Elves, and that's pretty much it. So I like my chances. I'm playing this deck because I think it's good against the field, not just Jeskai.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel Elves is one of those decks I always hear commented as being like one of the worst matchups for the X deck. A lot of decks I brew, I'm like, well, I guess against them I got to hit my sideboard Shrivel or Nausea or Black Trickery or I'm dead. Like that's my plan is hit my 2 outer. And I hear it a lot from other players too.
So one of the things I enjoy about brewing is if you can actually find a brew that no one else is really expecting and then run into something like the challenge. If you build a deck, like in this instance, that's really good against Jeskai, running it into the challenge is like the best thing you could do because you're very likely to face Jeskai about half the time, probably a bit more. And a brew they won't be properly prepared for. They won't know what to sideboard in, what to bring out, and you can usually get some pretty good matchups. The problem is most of the things that I've thought of so far have been run in these challenges, and they're starting to adjust to it.
Yeah, I did that myself when I ran Mono Heroic in like my first league, and when I won it. I mean, it's because no one was expecting it.
Yeah, I remember when that came on the scene. It was like out of left field. Nobody really knew what to expect with that deck.
I hit a Tron player in the what was it, quarterfinals and just ran him over like turn 4, turn 5. I got lucky. Okay, he could have beat me. He would have beat me, but
the meta's adjusted over the past couple months to be a lot faster. A number of months ago when we first had Modern Horizons, the format was actually quite a bit slower because everyone was trying out these new cards, lists weren't solidified, and everyone was kind of slowing down the meta. So coming in with like Mono White Heroic just caught everyone by surprise because everyone's like, that doesn't have any new cards. Like, what are you doing with that? So the meta, because of that, everyone started speeding up. Everyone's playing very fast, low to the ground, or decks that can slow down the game just enough to kind of overcome that.
Yeah.
I remember I remember when Horizons first came out and it was Astrolabe was everywhere, and I remember even talking with you, Nick, and we were saying, yeah, but the real card is Ephemerate. Watch out, like this is gonna come, and then now we're at that place. Now we're in it.
Well, it felt very powerful playing it early on, but I think even then we didn't really have a good grasp of how powerful it was going to be in the field.
Like I was really looking forward to Astrolabe coming out, and I knew it was going to become really popular, especially with people who like to brew new decks, because this really opens up that 3 or even 4 or 5 color like decks space in Pauper that we've never had before. And I did have some ideas on making a really funny like joke video on brewing with Modern Horizons, and it came down to like, pick your flavor of Astrolabe. Do you want 2 colors, 3 colors, 4? Doesn't matter. Just throw it all in, and then just something like that, because that's kind of what Astrolabe promotes. Is whatever you want to do, you can throw it in just with an Astrolabe.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, and I'm fond of those type of metas where you have a lot of options as far as what you want to include in your deck. And I know there's been a lot of like discussion. In fact, last week the guys were talking with Alex Ullman about like, well, how homogenous do you want things to be? Like how ubiquitous can X card be before it's a big problem in the meta? So for me, I would say I don't care. Like if everyone's running fetch lands in Modern, better decks overall is what I would see. But I could see it being an issue for other people.
Yeah, no, we'd kind of talked about this a week's prior, maybe 2 weeks ago. It's like if they're going to draw 4 or 6 cards with their Ephemerate Muldrifter, what are you doing to combat that? And you see like Guardian of the Guild Pack, Pestilence, the Steel of the Godhead, Protection red decks, like the decks that just negate by kind of spotting the weaknesses in the popular list and saying, okay, well, they have no answer in the main deck or even maybe the sideboard for this situation, like, or they're just going so fast of an aggro deck that they're negating that card advantage they're building by making the game end on turn 4 or 5. What do you guys think of, how do you approach maybe brewing in a meta game that like what we have right now? Like, what are you guys thinking maybe for next week or any big tournaments coming up? Like, what are you guys' thoughts? Just pick your brain on that.
Well, from my point of view, if anyone's brewing something that's fast, it's going to fit right into the meta right now. And if you're not doing that, you need to have a solid game plan for slowing down. And there are a lot of tools in Pauper, like there's various fog effects, but you can also have like very heavy removal based decks. I know GeneralSCUD's been going on with his mono black. If you're packing a lot of removal, you can just stop the other creatures from coming down. But then, of course, you're going to need to have enough card advantage or going long plan against Jeskai.
That's what the Monarch's for.
So.
Well, I know Kung Fu Trees in the Discord has been big advocate of like countering them before they come down, because a lot of the threats from that deck are blue now, because people seem to be shifting away from the 4-Hawk 4 Skyfisher package.
Yep.
Well, then you're just fighting fire with fire. He's playing counters, you're playing counters, trying to counter each other's plays. Like, I don't like that style, that strategy. I'd rather beat him with something different.
On the other side, I know there's a lot of people who do enjoy a really good counter magic battle, and this format definitely does promote that. The only problem is a lot of the decks that have counter magic are going to kind of lean you towards having the same kind of draw package and lead you into Jeskai or...
Exactly.
Just because right now the base blue decks, a lot of them are running Astrolabe, and then if you're running that, it's pretty easy to start picking up some Skyfishers. So
you're gonna get distilled by the meta into basically running Jeskai. Like,
I do know Mezel is always a strong advocate of Delver, and he's
screw
always making
him.
it work somehow. So there is definitely space available for counter magic heavy decks and being able to take down Jeskai.
I'm not times I've lost his damn force spike.
Yeah, I actually had I was talking with the guys a couple of weeks ago about this. The idea of picking a deck that's ideal for the meta versus just knowing a deck inside out and being able to take advantage of your experience with that deck. Because another guy that seems to stay on the same deck or has stayed on the same deck for a long time is Amoris27. He's been on Orzhov.
I just played him.
The white-black pestilence.
Yeah, for the longest time, and he still seems to be having some success with it.
He's always tweaking the numbers a little bit, which is like exactly what you need to do, and that's what brewers need to be on top of. As the meta changes, your deck is going to have to change and evolve with the times, and he's been on top of that, picking always the right cards.
Oh yeah, your deck should never be set in stone. Like, you should always be willing to cut cards and put in other cards, depending on what you see. Like, I hate running just a net deck day in and day out, and then never adjusting it. Like, I just basically every league.
Okay, so I just wanted to kind of pick your guys' brain on what resources maybe you use, what websites, what results are you looking at, or any other resources. Maybe it's talking to people or anything that you use for maybe updating a list, brewing from the ground up, or preparing for an upcoming tournament.
So I'm sure the first resource everyone thinks of is MTG Goldfish. It is just the first stop almost anyone should go to see tournament results. You got the challenges, the leagues. Some other tournaments do make their way into there. And it's not going to show you the whole picture, but it will give you at least a good idea of what kind of sideboard options everyone's going to, as well as main decks that you can try to build to beat. Outside of that, the Pauper Discord is an amazing place if you want to just have some discussion on some card ideas that you're thinking about. There's some very talented brewers in there that are always happy to jump in some good brewing discussion.
Brewwalla!
And then, of course, there's like great podcasts like this one. you can listen to get some good Pauper info.
Yeah.
I actually like listening and watching this guy. I don't know if you guys heard of him. His name's Mathonoical. He's always got some offbeat lists on YouTube.
He has a YouTube channel?
That's what I hear.
What's the link to that YouTube channel?
YouTube.com/Mathonoical.
Oh.
Yeah, you can always do a search on a deck that's similar to the one that you're trying to brew or the one that you're currently working on, and chances are there might be some content already out there. I know I haven't been posting anything lately, so I do apologize to people. I have some things in the works, but the meta's been evolving so quickly. It's just been challenging enough just to keep, like, I have to put enough time into play the game to know what's going on and to try and make time for videos after that. It's pretty tough.
Yeah, definitely. I hear that. I was before or I guess right at the start of the Whiteout tribe era when Paulo was starting to play that a lot. I had a similar tribe list, but without Whiteout, and I just didn't have the time to put in to continue brewing it and updating it, so I had to kind of put it to the side.
That's one list I haven't given a try yet either, but it looks really nice. I did like the versions that had Muddle the Mixture that was going to be able to tutor up either like the inside out part or the whiteout. It looks pretty nice.
Yeah, they've spent quite a bit of effort tweaking and tuning that, and there's a couple of different versions running around out there, but definitely the time you need to put in is it's healthy, you know.
For a brewed deck to go all the way, it takes a lot of time to really iterate through. You're gonna have to run it like after you've done all the research, after you looked up the resources and talked with people. The best way to figure out how good it is to actually just go and play it. And the first time you play it, you're gonna find some cards that didn't really work well. You're gonna find decks that are gonna be able to attack it at angles you didn't expect, and then you just have to go back, make some changes, and keep trying it.
For me, I basically took the skeleton of a deck I liked, like mono black, and I just kept subbing in cards. I just went through all of the cards that were available to me on Magic Online, looked at them, tried to figure out what would work in the deck, tried some cards, it didn't work, tried some other cards. Like, there's a card in my deck, Cry of Contrition, nobody's playing it, but it's a 1-mana discard 2, and it's an absolutely brilliant card.
Is that the one where they discard one and then they mill a card off?
They haunt. You haunt a creature, and then if you kill the creature, then they do it to recast it.
It's a card people certainly are not expecting.
Like, I was looking for cheap discard, and that fit the bill. And I found that just through brewing, through looking through the cards. See, if you just copy other people, you're just gonna be playing the meta, and it's kind of derivative. It's not very fun, you know. So that's why I did it.
I used to like. I would always go through all the leagues before we had the challenges, and there's always like offbeat stuff that makes it. And while the list overall might not be worth following, there might be like one little card that I just kind of tuck in the back of my mind and maybe pull back up when I revisit that color in something else.
A long while ago, like I know most people know of GeneralSCUD. He's always doing amazing brews and just working with stuff. And one card he actually played with many years ago that I saw in one of his videos was Claws of Wirewood. And I'm actually a little surprised no one's picked that up and found a way to play it yet. For people who don't know it, it's 3 and a green, and it's a sorcery. Claws of Wirewood deals 3 damage to each creature with flying and each player, and has cycling for 2.
Wow.
So like, that is a card that, it's a little clunky, it's a little slow, but if someone could figure out a way to play that, it would be a pretty good hoser at like board wiping. Board wiping chess guy.
Dave has been a big advocate of that in our LGS.
Yeah, green is just my least favorite color. So all the I'll go up to Chris and be like, play this. He's like, I can't pay 4 mana in Stompy for this card. I'm like, okay, but you know about it.
Yeah, Stompy doesn't want it. I'm not sure who does, but I was kind of surprised that the big Stompy decks or like the green land destruction aren't playing some copies of that somewhere. I feel like it would slot in pretty nice because they usually ramp up pretty hard.
Well, they're usually like blowing up the lands before they get the creatures down, so I don't think that's going to get a lot of value.
But the idea is, if they do get some creatures down, you'd clean them up. And if you did kill all the creatures, you cycle it.
I could see that as a one of in like Tron list maybe.
Yeah, that too.
Because they seem to struggle with the Glinthawk and Skyfisher versions.
Yeah, that would absolutely ravage those Glinthawk, core Skyfisher scumbag decks.
The difficulty is it's a sorcery, so they wouldn't be able to tutor it up with their package Mystical Teachings.
Yeah.
I'm always a fan of. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, exactly what you said, Mathonoical, is like just kind of keeping an eye on cards from a couple of years ago or something like that. That's usually how I go about finding tech for a lot of my lists.
Yeah, I love building an advantage that just is like a blowout like that into my decks. Like I was trying to play Branching Bolt like a year and a half ago, and I had no idea. I'm like, people aren't doing this, but I think it's dope. Just trying to avoid these stalemate mirror match-esque situations with just this blowout, and then be like, okay, like 4 for 1, moving on to the next issue here. Like, but that's just my, I guess, playstyle.
I do like that playstyle as well. I was on a kick with Pestilence for a good number of months a few years back, just for that reason. Back then, everyone was playing like grindy decks, but if you could find a way of playing where you didn't lose to aggro and then you could get Pestilence online, it was a lot of fun. Same way. I know Amorous is always on that kind of plan.
I stopped playing Pestilence because of so much removal in the meta. Like, just can't keep creatures down. So.
Yeah, there was a funky-looking Mardu list that was kind of like half Boros, half Pestilence in the last league results. That I pay attention to that kind of stuff when I see those kind of things pop up. And again, while that might not be like the optimal list, maybe it's something that could be tweaked or continue to brew with that down the line, turn it into something.
It's also got a pretty good surprise factor, and that does go a long way in tournaments.
Yeah, winning the first game has a lot of value. Either way, even if you're aggro, control, mid-range, whatever, like if you win the first game, then you go second game. If you lose that, you go first in the third game. Like that's a lot of value there.
Yeah, especially with the format speeding up. Maybe it wasn't as important a few months back, but now it's very huge.
Like that could be the difference between me getting my Thorn online before they have counter magic up. Like, yeah, it's a big deal.
So, when would you guys, like, what would make you want to brew? You've kind of touched on this, but what would make you want to brew a deck as opposed to just picking something that you think is really solid that's already a present in the meta?
For me, usually it's seeing a cool card, something that's not being played, and wanting to build a deck around that.
From my side, I'm kind of always brewing on the side as I'm just going about everyday activities. I am thinking about like, what if I combine this card with that card? And then when I've got time, I'll sit down, I'll actually throw together a deck. And if it starts to actually come together in like a nice curve, it seems to have a solid game plan, then I'll take it through a league. But as like, that's where a lot of the brews stop for me. Usually it's just kind of like, that was fun, and I'll keep note of a couple cards. And over time, that's how I've come up with some of my lists, like Priest Reanimator, where I've played a lot of different decks, and then I saw the new Priest strategy coming out, realized it fit exactly with what I was trying to brew with some Reanimator lists, and that's how you get some brews that actually do congeal into a solid deck. For tournaments, though, you have to, like, if you want to brew and you want to play it in a big tournament, like, by all means, you're going to catch some people by surprise and get some wins that way. But you have to be ready for solid, tuned, like, net deck lists. So if you're expecting certain lists, if you brew to beat those lists, you can have some success. Otherwise, just go in to have fun.
It's hard to prepare for the whole field, like, and you never know how things are going to interact until you actually put it through some trial and error.
Yeah, and of course, with tournaments, it's always a bit random what your pairings look like, so you could just get unlucky and not face any of the tier decks that you were expecting.
And then if there's always going to be the difference between online tournaments and in-person tournaments as well.
I know for me, like, I don't brew a whole lot. I mostly just take lists that I like and try to tweak a card here, a card there. It was just kind of hard. You get a little disheartened with your list getting like smashed, 3 or 4 leagues in a row. How do you guys kind of like step past that, or like keep at it when you're brewing? Do you have any tricks for that or tips?
I switch to new decks. I just constantly switch to different things, and that's my way of like stopping myself from burning out. I know some people will like stick by one deck and tune it until they're able to beat everybody else. I know
Go ahead.
I know GeneralSCUD is one of those type of people. He's got his 2 decks that he stands by.
Oh yeah, I like knowing my deck inside out, and when I'm on a losing streak, like I just if it's your fault, like if you made a mistake or several mistakes, that's actually good. It means that you can change your behavior and win next time. You can learn. If it's the deck, then you can change the cards. Like it's never impossible to fix.
What comes to mind for me is like some of these brews that maybe you've tried in the past year or so, and new cards have come out, and for some reason or another they're not popping back up. Maybe because some card is out now that's so oppressive, or maybe they're just waiting for one more piece to unlock, like maybe Zubera's, or we have a Walls guy at our store, Mike, or like the Mirror and Spy Retraction Helix combo. Any combos like that you guys maybe in the past? I know for me, a deck that is kind of a pet favorite of mine is like the Songs of the Damned Green Black X deck, or more recently like the Snow White Tron deck. Are there any decks that you guys would love to be on tier 1 or just below that are you feel like maybe you'd shy away from using those in a bigger tournament right now?
My list on decks that I would love to see and play in tournaments would be too long for the podcast, unfortunately.
You should see his deck list. It is like a mile long.
I've got brews in every color, every combination, everything. Like you're mentioning your green black songs list.
Mm-hmm.
I was working on a mono black song list that was trying to like combo off with nothing but cyclers and crypt rats. And it feels like it just needs a couple cards, but every list always feels like it just needs a couple cards until they finally get them and then they start showing up. I think Walls is one of those lists that should start having some of the pieces needed. There's that new haste wall that might actually be better than the harness. I know P. Proteus was trying.
Yeah.
So if like my advice to anyone who has like a pet deck that they really like that they've worked on, just keep an eye on spoilers, because when new cards come out, just dust off those old brews, give them another try, because it might be the thing I needed.
I would love to play my Mono White Heroic deck again. I would love to. But it's Jeskai is sucking all the oxygen out of the room, so I just can't play it reliably. Because like, playing fast decks is more profitable. Like you get through games faster. But no, I just can't. Not right now.
One thing I did want to bring up with just brewing in general, like while it's awesome to like look at neat interactions and neat combos or cards that you want to play and put together, for anyone who wants to like seriously tackle brewing, there are some articles on like Channel Fireball, like by Frank, that goes to the math of mana bases. I'd highly recommend those for anyone who actually, because if you're building a completely new deck from scratch with nothing to base it on, it also means you're going to be creating the mana from scratch, and you want to be making sure you can cast all your spells, because you want to know that your deck is functioning as well as it can, and that it's not just you're not getting the right colors, and that's the reason why your deck's not working. You actually want to be solid in your mana base. You want to know that you've got the right like sideboard tech. So for that, look at lists on like MTG Goldfish. Take a look at what people are using for sideboarding against like the usual hate against Boggles, Tron, that sort of thing. And then if you combine those with new strategies and new ideas, it actually gives you a leg up in your brewing. So that way you're not trying to start from scratch every single time.
Yeah, I had to look up when I brewed a deck last time to actually find out how many lands I needed, because I had no idea. Like, so I did, there was some kind of algorithm I went through.
I think actually even Saffron Olive from MTG Goldfish has done one or two little videos on how he approaches brewing, because he seems to come up with a ton of random things just about every week.
With his Much Brew series and all the different instant deck decks he's always going over, yeah, he's a great resource if you just want to get nonstop creative ideas. Unfortunately, most of them are usually going to be in Modern with some Standard and stuff trickled in, but watching that is going to just get us better at brewing in general. Like a lot of it's going to transfer over to Pauper as well, and just getting the creativity going by watching brewing happening anywhere, it'll really inspire you. Because right now, if you just look at the results and see nothing but Jeskai, it can be a little disheartening to brew decks, and that's largely because a lot of other people are losing steam to brew, and they're not bringing in new stuff. So, if you want to see new stuff in the challenges, then play it. You be the person to bring new stuff in.
Yeah, definitely. Well, any parting words you guys want to share with our listeners about brewing or your experiences brewing?
You can never go wrong playing Astrolabe.
You also don't have a soul if you play Astrolabe.
So I have a brew. It's Elves with Elves of the Deep Shadow, and in the sideboard, Ashes to Ashes. So if anybody wants to try that out, I think it's pretty dope. I've been trying Esper, but I don't think it's better than Jeskai, to be honest. I don't know. But I'm trying. Yeah. I'm out here. Sure. I still have my mono white Tron deck built, but people seem to... it doesn't seem to do as good as it used to be. So I don't know. I keep plugging away at it. I don't know if I don't lose it, but I'm normally a brew in other formats. I just feel like Pauper is a little tougher, but I mean, people do it. People break through. Was it the land destruction guy recently? I mean, it happens pretty frequently.
Yeah.
So.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, eternal formats are a little tough to brew in because the format doesn't change too much with rotations and so forth, but the pool is just so huge. There's always like something you can kind of dip into. So that's, I guess, one thing to kind of think positively about Pauper with.
Did we want to touch on some of the new cards? Maybe get some ideas. I mean, that's where a lot of the brewing, I think, centers around, especially like right now. There's a lot of buzz around Mystic Sanctuary.
There is going to be a lot of space around that. I know Familiars is really looking forward to Mystic Sanctuary, and I'm looking forward to it just as trying to shift the meta back to Ghostly Flicker over Ephemerate personally. Although I'm sure some people will find ways of making both those cards exist in the same deck. So
I'm sure
there's a lot of brewing space there.
Can we touch on the fact that you're the one who made that deck?
I'm the one that brought Spell Setters into it, but someone else is going to figure it out eventually if I didn't.
It's ultra greedy. I don't know. Yeah. But and Witch's Cottage. I saw a guy playing that. I can't play it in my deck because I need my Bojuka Bogs for Graveyard Hate. So I just can't. I don't think I have room for it, but potentially.
Yeah, there's a few cards. It's more than what you typically get from most standard releases. So.
Yep. There's also like the Crashing Drawbridge, which Walls might want to give a try. It might be like a one of just as a way of getting their combo going at instant speed.
I've actually been kind of excited by that the one blue artifact that
Wishing
pumps a creature. Well, the one that pumps a creature and +1/+2, and you can attach it whenever you draw your second card for the turn.
Yes, the blue one.
I'm like totally out there and crazy. Like I was kind of excited by Forever Young in long control matchups. I thought that might be another way for me to just get all the good cards, the cards that do stuff, back into my deck to start running them out of threats. You know.
There's also the new green artifact equipment that's like +2/+1, and when it enters, equip it to a non-human for free. I do expect there's going to be some sort of Skyfisher Glinthawk deck that's going to be able to take advantage of that. Just because if your creature ever gets killed, you can actually bounce it, replay it, and turn your Glinthawks into 4/3s, your Skyfishers to 4/4s.
Yeah, there was a green-based Astro deck a few weeks ago that maybe could make use of something like that.
Yep.
There's another guy out there brewing, coming up with some new stuff. So,
what do you guys think about Ginger Brute? I'm not a huge fan of the flavor of that guy, but you know, it seems like he can be unblockable mostly all the time. Fits into any aggro deck, and he's a crappy bottle gnome if you want it to be. What do you guys think about that for some of the aggro decks?
Because it's just 1 power, like usually it's going to be red that's trying to really out aggro with haste, and they've got a lot of 2-power 1-drops, so they're always going to want those instead. The pseudo unblockable is nice, but I don't know, maybe Stompy could give it a try, but unfortunately it doesn't just go with their Savage Swipe.
Yeah.
And then turning it, like gaining life off of it is, like if you're aggro...
You don't do that.
It's not what you're looking for.
Yeah, I don't see it working really. Maybe if you were going to like equip it or enchant it, but then again, like they're hexproof creatures. Why don't you just use those?
Like I'm planning on giving it a try at some point, just seeing how it feels. It feels like Pauper already has enough other aggro stuff that it's not really going to find a home, but it's possible that a 1-mana pseudo unblockable haste threat might be good.
Well, actually, I did think. Okay. I had this. I've been struggling to control the Monarch because I play Thorn a lot in Mono Black. I was thinking, well, what if I had some kind of haste creature, cheap haste creature, to steal it back? And this actually might be that creature. So maybe I take it back. Maybe this could work.
It might also be the life gain you're looking for against burn.
Maybe. Maybe, yeah. So this is played in some ultra slow control list.
It's a hasty bottle gnomes.
What about okay, this one might be a similar. I know there's similar cards already, but Scorching Dragonfire, 1 red, 1 colorless instant, deals 3 damage to a creature or planeswalker. If it dies, it's exiled instead.
I think we've already got Incinerate.
Yeah, I think Incinerate does something like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't exile.
No, I think we do already have one that does exile. Okay. It may be Incinerate, it may be something else, but so that effect, the fact that it can target planeswalkers, I think, is new, but we didn't need that.
Yeah, I didn't know if there was a 3 damage for 2. I know Pillar of Flame is a sorcery, so it's a sorcery shock that does that, and then Magma Spray does 2 and exiles it and is an instant. Just didn't know maybe the 3 put it over the edge or not.
No, I don't think that one's going to make any... It's not going to make it in Pauper, unfortunately. We've got, like, as for answers and removal, we're actually already better than almost every other format. We have all the best 1-mana and 2-mana answers. So usually it's kind of like creatures are where we're really lacking, or threats or bombs.
Well, we're missing the best 1-mana answer, unfortunately, but it's not a common. So.
It's true. We are missing a few.
I know I've been hoping Wizards print some more sweepers, but they're just taking their time, I guess, releasing different busted stuff first.
I'd imagine their fear is a lot of the cheap sweepers are like 2-3 mana that are like a couple damage to everything. It would really power up red, and they might just be afraid of skewing the balance in that direction. Although, in my opinion, we've got blue, so we can probably afford to power up some other things, although then blue might just splash for it, so...
Yeah. Well, guys, we are just about out of time here. I want to thank Mathonoical and GeneralSCUD for coming on. You guys have had some awesome insights to share with us.
Thank you very much for having us here.
Thank you.
Of course. And we're going to have links on our webpage to Mathonoical's YouTube page, and if GeneralSCUD, you have anything that you wanted
I
to...
would stream, but I'm afraid people would steal my deck and or stream snipe me.
That's fair. That's fair. Well, I guess that's all for this week. I'm Nick. Dave signing off as well, and we'll catch you next time.